Regarding issues surrounding the ancient Egyptian civilization, no one's above being shocked by new discoveries and unimaginable truths, not even scientists. Today, thanks to Joe Rogan, the Sphinx of Giza is at the forefront as shocking secrets about the ancient creature explode in revelation, and scientists appear to have been wrong again. But what are these secrets that were never told? Keep watching to find out. Following Joe Rogan's recent hosting of Robert Schoch, a geologist and professor at Boston University, there's been a great heave in the science community as shocking discoveries about the Sphinx of Giza get revealed, answering the question of just how old the strange creature is. For this question, popular scientific opinions certainly exist. The most common is that the Sphinx was built during the Old Kingdom era, between 2603 to 2578 BC. Popular belief holds that the Sphinx was built for Pharaoh Khafre, a renowned pharaoh in Egypt, known for his association with the Great Pyramids of Giza, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Pharaoh Khafre's father, Pharaoh Khufu, was said to be the builder of the biggest and most magnificent pyramid in Giza. Following his father's standards, Pharaoh Khafre was said to have built this pyramid beside his father's. It was 10 foot shorter and heavily beautified by the outstanding complex of structures around it. This included the Great Sphinx of Giza. The belief that the Sphinx was built by Pharaoh Khafre also seems supported by the theory that the Sphinx's head seemed to look exactly like a sculpture of Pharaoh Khafre, found in the Valley Temple and discovered in the mid-1800s by Marriott, right opposite the Sphinx. Some even believed that the placement of the Sphinx had a paranormal purpose, to resurrect Pharaoh Khafre's soul by harnessing the power of the sun and other gods. But this is just one of the many speculations about the original builder of the Sphinx of Giza. According to some, the Sphinx must have been built by Pharaoh Khufu himself because the head of the Sphinx seems to resemble him. Others opined that the Sphinx was built by Pharaoh Jedefra, Pharaoh Khafre's older stepbrother, in honor of their father Khufu. But just when all these explanations were starting to make some sense, something striking happened. Professor Schoch stepped in, declaring everyone wrong. He even travels down to Egypt to investigate the Sphinx of Giza and its speculations, having been prompted by Schwaller de Lubix, a French scholar who had begun the discovery war. He carried out a detailed analysis of the Temple of Luxor, measuring its floor, examining its ruins, and in the process discovering some geometric relationships, also finding this relationship in other sculptures at the time. He reported his findings in 1949, providing the full detail in 1957. His findings challenged the status quo belief about the mathematical accuracy of ancient Egypt, providing a new view of the Egyptian religion as well. Hence, his colleagues should have welcomed his views as they were contradictory. Schwaller, during this time, also noticed a physical contradiction between the Sphinx of Giza and the structures around it. Take a guess, what are the contradictions? The Sphinx was affected by a different kind of erosion caused by water, as opposed to the popular belief of windborne sand erosion. However, his beliefs were buried, as no one took them seriously. It was later brought up again in the 1970s by an Egyptologist, John Anthony West, who took the matter up again. What was found? Examining the Sphinx and its temples, the difference was clear when compared to other Giza structures. The Sphinx, enclosures, and temple walls have been seriously washed over time, giving it a sagging look. But the other structures were only affected by sharp abrasions from the sand, birthing new speculation that the Sphinx's erosion was caused by none other than water. But what explains this, since Giza is largely desert and arid? This explanation made by West for the new discovery of the Sphinx of Giza gives us 2 factors to consider. What are they? First is the fact that the Sphinx certainly is way older than what is generally agreed upon. And secondly, the discovery implies that there was a time when Giza and the Sahara experienced a huge amount of rainfall, possibly during the time of the post-glacial northward shift of the temperate zone. This was said to have happened between 10,000 to 5,000 BCE, leaving the Sahara as a desert afterward. It was also hypothesized that there had been a shorter but more intense rainfall between 4000 to 3000 BCE, with the events coming to a close in the middle of the 3rd millennium. So, according to West, it was possible that the weathering on the Sphinx resulted from the flooding from the post-glacial northward shift rains. From this, the age of the Sphinx could be attained, knowing that it was certainly either built during or before the post-glacial shifts, given that the location of these sculptures, which had been arid since 5000 BCE. As interesting and convincing as this may sound, it wasn't convincing enough to other orthodox archaeologists who fully rejected West's theory. But not giving up, West and Schoch had set out to Giza to find evidence in 1990. And according to Schoch, just looking at the sculpture, one could tell the anomaly. There was heavy evidence of erosion on the Sphinx's body and walls. Again, the depth at the left side of the Sphinx also came from underneath, showing that water must have run through the spot. As a result, the creation of the Sphinx body was dated back to 5000 and possibly 10,000 BCE, when the last ice age was coming to a conclusion. If you notice, the point of argument here is not the Sphinx head, being obviously an Old Kingdom's work, causing critics to argue, stating that if indeed the Sphinx age dates back to 10,000 to 5000 BCE, why is the head of the Sphinx that of a pharaoh from the Old Kingdom era? So let's talk about the secret and explanation of the Sphinx's head. What is the mystery? Looking at the head of the Sphinx, it was clearly carved during the dynasty period. But where does this leave the new discovery? Schoch and his team had found that the head was too small for the body of the Sphinx, thereby raising the question of whether the head was actually the original head of the Sphinx. A deeper inquiry into the matter showed that the head might have been recarved during the dynasty era. This is because the original head of the Sphinx must have worn out due to weathering. It was recovered about 2000 BCE when the Old Kingdom was in place. It is, in fact, questionable whether the original sculpture was actually a Sphinx at all, as more evidence proves otherwise, showing that it was actually a lioness. This belief was pushed forward by Graham Hancock. For more evidence, Schoch and his team measured the weathering depth of the Sphinx, using a sledgehammer on a steel plate, creating a sound wave, having analysis showing that the body of the Sphinx must have been up to 12,000 years old. This was because the weathering had an extraordinary depth. There was also evidence of a chamber within the body of the Sphinx that suggested that there must have been a tunnel that ran through from the very beginning to the end of the Sphinx, providing more shocking implications for the purpose of this Sphinx. Questioning Schoch's theory, however, scientists had asked for evidence of an advanced civilization that may have existed when the Sphinx was created. Wittily, the Sphinx itself seems to be evidence, but if there was ever an advanced civilization that really existed about 12,000 years ago, something must have happened to wipe it off completely without a trace. So, the question remains, what is it? Presently, their findings to the Geological Society of America so far gain Schoch's theory support, alongside contributions that the Sphinx was a yardang that could have been eroded for millennia before being carved. Although some critics say that you do not have to go back to 12,000 years ago to account for rainfall in the Nile region, as it was a regular concept in the past. In all, while Schoch had oppositions, he also had support from the likes of Graham Hancock, who further suggested that the Sphinx is a Leo symbol, meant to face the rising sun during the constellation of Leo in the vernal equinox. The fact that the Sphinx is found facing the due east explains this. But what do you think? What's your take on the argument about the Sphinx's age? Did an advanced civilization really exist 12,000 years ago? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more.